Hey y'all, it's Miss Flores. So today we are going to start modeling multiplication problems with decimals and whole numbers. So we will be taking decimal numbers, multiplying them by whole numbers, and not only solving it, but show models, like how we can model to visualize how we would solve that problem. So let's look at our first example. All right, so let's think about this problem. It says that giant tortoises move very slowly. They can travel a distance about 1/1700th mile in 1 hour. That's like not even one lap around a track. If a giant tortoise travels at the same speed, how far can it move in 4 hours? So let's think about the statement. I need to find how many miles are in blank groups of blank. Well, in our problem, we know that a tortoise can move 1/1700ths of a mile, right, in 1 hour, and we're trying to find 4 hours. So that sounds like I'm going to figure out how many total miles are in 4 groups, right? Because we're talking about 4 hours of 1/1700ths miles, right? Because they give us how many it's in 1 hour. We're trying to find 4 hours. So an expression to solve this would be 4 times 1/1700ths. And so that's what we are going to try to solve. So now, same problem, right? Now we're going to use our decimal model to find the answer. A decimal model is a hundreds grid, right? So if we look at this, what does each small square in our decimal model represent? So like we just said, it's a hundreds grid, right? Hundreds grid means that there are 100 little squares throughout this entire thing. So one of them is going to represent 100th. So one of them would represent 0.01, 100th. And so now we're going to shade our group of squares to represent the distance a giant tortoise can move in 1 hour. Well, if it can move 1/1700ths miles in 1 hour, right? 1/1700ths, each one of these represents 100th. That would be 17 squares. So I'm going to take my color and I'm going to do my 17 squares. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each one of these is 10, right? So 17 would be this amount. That would be 1/1700ths. But that's 1 hour, right? We're trying to find 4 hours. So we're going to use a different color to shade each group of 4 of 17 squares until we have 4 groups of 17 squares. So we have 4. Remember, multiplication is just repeated addition, right? So we're going to just basically add 1/1700ths 4 times. So I had one group of 1/1700ths, now I'm going to do another. So I've got 3, add another 10, gets me 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's my other 17. So now I've got 2 groups of 17. Let's add our third group of 17. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And now I'm going to add my last group of 17. So I've got 9 right here. So then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All right, so I've got my 4 groups of 17. So now we're going to use this to find our answer, right? So we did 17, then another 17, then another 17, then another 17. That's 4 groups of 17. So what I could do is I could literally just count them up in order to figure out what my answer is. Remember, one row was 10, then we've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then we had 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it would be 6/800ths. In order to figure if you did it right, we could always use traditional multiplication to solve, right? I can do my 1/1700ths times 4, and I get 28, carry the 2, 6, 0, but I had 2 numbers to the right of my decimal, right? So 1, 2, and it is 6/800ths, just like our model showed us. Let's get our next problem. So now let's look at this model to find the product of 3 and 44 hundredths. So if you notice, I've got 3 groups of 44 hundredths. In order to find what the product would be, I would just add them all up, like repeated addition, right? Well, when we were solving it earlier, we said this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So one row is 10 of them, right? So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, 130. So now let's think about it. Remember, these are hundredths that we're dealing with, right? So a hundredths, when I'm dealing with hundredths, 100 hundredths is one whole, right? So this, and this got me, whoops, sorry, this was supposed to be 110 and 120. I jumped the gun on that. There you go. So that was supposed to be one whole right there, right? So now I know that it's 1 point something. Then I have my 1/10, 2/10 left over. So let's add our squares. So we know we have 2/10 left over. But then we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hundredths, right? So if we had 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 hundredths left over. So my answer would be 1 and 32 hundredths total when we regroup them. So that's how you solve these models when dealing with regrouping. Let's look at another example. All right, so now we have 5 times 6 hundredths. So they've already colored in our model, right? They just did alternating colors. So they have they've got one group of 6 hundredths, 2 groups of 6 hundredths, 3 groups, 4 groups, and 5 groups. So that's our 5 groups of 6 hundredths. So I can just count out my squares in order to figure it out. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so this would be 20, and that would be 30. So that would be 30 hundredths. Or just 3/10, because you don't need that last 0. So 3/10 would be our answer. Let's look at the next couple problems. These next couple ones, we're going to have to do the coloring ourselves. So now I've got 2 times 38 hundredths. So I'm going to do one group of 38 hundredths. So that would be, remember, one of these rows is 10. So I could say 10, 20, 30, and then 38 would go down here. So that would be 38 hundredths. Now my second color is going to be my second group of 38 hundredths. So I've got 2, add another 10 would be 12. Add another group would be 22. Then I've got 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. So those are my 2 groups of 38. Well, all together would be my answer, right? So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 hundredths, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So I'd have 76 hundredths, which would be 0.76. 76 hundredths would be my answer. Let's look at the next one. We've got 4 times 24 hundredths. So I'm going to have 4 groups of 24 hundredths. So let's start with our first group. So I'm going to color in 24 hundredths 4 times. So I've got 10 is my first row, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's my first group. Now I'm doing this 4 times because it's 4 times 24 hundredths. So now I've got 6 plus another 10 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's my next group of 24. I'm going to do my third group of 24. So 2, 12, 22, 23, 24. And then my final group of 24, I've got 8 plus another 10 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So, all right, we're done with all of our coloring. So now you just got to count them up. Well, I've got one full one of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. 96. So that would be 0.96. 96 hundredths. All right, let's look at our final example before we look at our assignment. So we're going to write an equation that matches the model. So remember, our models when we're doing multiplication with decimals and whole numbers, it's just repeated addition, right? That's all the multiplication is. I just need to figure out how many times something is being added. So let's look at our first thing. First thing, let's figure out our groups. They're different colors, right? So this would be our first group, this purple. This purple is our number that's being repeated. And in that, I've got 10, 20, 30, 31. So I know I've got 31, but they're each little square, so they're 31 hundredths. Well, I've got it repeated not once, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, right? So my problem would be 31 hundredths times 4. Now, what would that equal? Let's think about it. We can just use our rows and our individual squares in order to add up to see what our answer equals. Well, I know this right here is an entire hundreds grid, right? If an entire hundreds grid is filled up, this is one whole, right? So I know my answer is 1 whole point, whatever is left over. Well, whatever's left over, we've got 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 hundredths. So my answer would be 1 and 24 hundredths. Oops. There we go. 1 and 24 hundredths. So 31 hundredths times 4 is 1. All right, y'all. Here is your assignment for today. So we are going to continue, just like we did in our practice, modeling multiplication problems with whole numbers. So let me show you all how this looks on Google Slides. So our first problem is going to be 4 times 7 hundredths. So just like before, we're going to use repeated addition to solve this. So I'm going to add 7 hundredths 4 times. So since you can't color in squares on this, you're going to use the shape tool to add your own shape. So you just go to the little shape tool, go to shapes, the rectangle tool. You're going to drag it to where you cover 7 hundredths, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right there. And so it can color it in this color. You can change the colors, right? Like if I wanted it to be yellow. Just like that. And then I'm going to do another 7 hundredths. Now this time you notice I have 3. So I'll have to do 3 and then add another 4 to make it 7. Just like that. So now for these though, you'll want to make sure that you make them the same color so that way you know that that's one group of 7 hundredths, right? So whatever you make one, you got to make the other. So just like that. And if you make them too small, you can adjust. So just like that. So I've got one group of 7 hundredths. This is my next group of 7 hundredths. So now I would need a third group of 7 hundredths, right? Because we were wanting 4 groups of 7 hundredths. So go back to my shape tool. Add another one. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to add, oops. So that's 6. And then I'm going to keep it this color. And let's do one more. All right, so I've got my 1/700ths, second 700ths, third 700ths. Now my final 700ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Colored in a different color. And there we go. I've colored them all in. Now, I went a little bit too high on this one. Oh, I actually went a little bit too low. Hold on. There we go. Fixed it. All right. So now I've got my 1/700ths, 2, 3, 4 groups of 700ths. Now I'm just going to count them all up. Well, remember, one row, this row right here, that was 1. So that would be 10/100ths. Then I had another row. So that would be 20/100ths. And then my last one, it wasn't a whole row, right? If you notice, you can't, once you color it in with the shape tool, you can't see the lines, so you might have to use these lines as kind of a guide. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I end up with 20/100ths and 8/100ths, which would be 28/100ths. So I'm going to type it in here in my box. 28/100ths would be my answer. 28/100ths would be my final answer. And so you're going to use this to help solve the rest of these problems. You've got quite a few that are going to be the same kind of thing, right? You've got a couple of word problems as well. Now, on number 8, it says that one day Nat's dog drank 3 times as much water as his cat. If his cat drank 83/100ths liter of water, how many liters did his dog drink? You notice that this number is much larger than numbers we've done before, and you've got 3 whole hundreds grids. So that means you're probably going to have overlapping amounts. So you'll end up having a couple holes and then some left over. So make sure to keep that in mind. And, continuing on the same kind of thing, got some word problems. And then on our final 2 questions, on both of them, you're going to use the chart on both of them to solve those questions. So make sure you're reading them carefully. We will go over these questions later on when we meet again. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns in the comments of the assignment, and I will talk to y'all later. Have a good day, guys. Bye.